Institutional assessment and effectiveness. In this presentation, we'll be talking about the importance of effectiveness as it relates to assessment. We'll also be talking about accreditation and the role that that plays in the process of institutional effectiveness. So what is institutional effectiveness? Well, essentially, it is doing or accomplishing what we say we're going to do. So if we're using all of these dollars that students have given us in tuition money, and we're saying that at the end of 4 years, we hope that you will have accomplished this, that we're saying that you are going to gain this through your educational experience, then it's being able to demonstrate that that actually happened. So this can be a little bit challenging if you think about the idea that if we say we're an applied and liberal arts institution, how do we demonstrate that we were able to do this? Well, in the specific example of Messiah, where we say we're going to build students' maturity of intellect, character, and Christian faith, how does this really happen? How are we sure? How are we able to do this? The way that we can be sure is to look at the effectiveness of our assessment. So the first step in this process is engaging the right stakeholders, whether that is students, faculty, staff, external stakeholders. And then we establish a clear purpose. So these are the goals, these are the outcomes that we hope to accomplish. And then we also design a thoughtful approach to assessment planning. So when we're looking forward, when we're saying as a result of doing this program or doing this intervention or teaching this pedagogy, we want students to be able to gain this following. Or we kind of look back and we say, was this effective? Did this happen? So it's kind of looking forward and back in our approaches. We're also creating a written plan that is very, very distinctive in describing who, what, when, and why in the process. And then finally, the timing of the assessment. So it may happen, every 3 years, every 5 years, once a year. It really depends on the individual program or outcome that we're looking at. But that timing is clear in terms of we're going by this process. So the mid-awe chapter that was posted in Canvas did a really good job covering the history of what has happened over the years to bring about change for colleges and universities in terms of accountability. So there was a real shift from this, we just have the college, we have the university, and students just come. There's really no sort of pressure to demonstrate our effectiveness. If you come and you get a college degree, it is worth something. And so you really saw a shift. You saw more faculty who were assigned to specific disciplines. Ernest Boyer wrote this article talking about reinventing undergraduate education. It was a seminal piece when you see this sort of shift in higher education. And then one of the more important pieces in terms of what we think about with accreditation and accountability was the National Commission on the Future of Higher Education. And they published a report. And so Margaret Spellings, the Secretary of Education, and her committee put forth several recommendations that would help to address these concerns within higher education. Number one, they said you have to control costs. So tuition costs were really skyrocketing, and they said you have to put a cap on this. You have to think in terms of what students can afford and what is a reasonable sort of cost for higher education. And you need to make that clear to students who are considering going to college, to pursuing this education, so that they can effectively compare institutions. They also put forth several government regulations, I think in a sense to create consistency or sameness. The problem was you have so many colleges and universities who have very different mission statements and goals that they set forth for their students. And so that created a bit of a rub in terms of what the government was trying to say and what colleges and universities, how they were responding. And then essentially they said, we want to look at this in terms of creating sort of a process that would link institutional productivity to effectiveness in student learning. And so these are some of the pieces that they put forth through the Spellings Commission. Basically, this all boils down to this idea that there was public and governmental outcry for more accountability and transparency from colleges and universities. So the parents and the individual students, they wanted to know that their tuition dollars were being spent well. And government wanted to know that their Pell Grants, that the monies that they put forth in student aid, that was being used effectively. And so there's just this we have to address this problem. We have to sort of step forward with this. And that's when you really saw an increase in accrediting bodies trying to create consistency among colleges and universities. So there's basically 3 points of consideration as we talk about institutional effectiveness. Number one is that if we want to meet the accreditation standards, the criteria that are put forth, then we have to demonstrate that we are able to deliver on what we say that we are offering. And the second thing is that if we're going to be competitive, we want to be transparent. We want to be able to post our information and say, this is what we're able to deliver. This is how we prove that we are effective. And institutions that aren't transparent, that aren't giving that information, I think that they're really not competitive. They're not able to sort of keep up with all the other colleges and universities that are in line with this. And then the third thing to think about is that we want to demonstrate institutional effectiveness because it's the right thing to do. So if we say we're an institution of higher education and our goal is to deliver the following for students, we want to do that because it's what we say we're doing. It's just what we honor and what we uphold as a college or university. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to talking about this with you more.